Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to continue our look at the cartoon history of the universe by Larry Gonick. We're up to volume number 6, and once again, unfortunately, we have a very lackluster cover. I gotta say, Larry Gonick is a terrible cover artist. He never picks like a striking image or something that's, graphically pleasing. It's always just kind of like some random little drawing like this. It's just like, it doesn't really stand out. But once again, as I've stated before, I love this logo. Makes me want to pick up the book and read it. Once again, we're looking at the deluxe editions of this comic, which came out in the mid-'80s. But originally, the original edition of number 6 came out in 1981. Once again, we start off with a cute, funny little introduction from Larry Gonick. And he's telling us how almost all of the research for this book is pretty much from Herodotus, the histories. So, apparently Herodotus, a lot of historians now look at him as the father of all lies. Apparently he just made shit up. He wasn't what we call good history now. He was not practicing. But Larry Gonick would beg to differ, and he lets us know that Herodotus is a great writer, and we should give him a second chance. So here we start with volume 6. Who are these Athenians? And this just pretty much documents about 100 years of Greek history. So this one's interesting. So every issue we've seen up to now, they cover multiple centuries, multiple countries, multiple cultures. This one is pretty much just the story of the rise of Athens. He does that pretty quick. And then the Persian War against Greece, but mainly against Athens. So we start off learning about the Oracle of Delphi. Originally, the Oracle of Delphi was dedicated or devoted to Gaia, the Earth goddess. But apparently somewhere along the way, Apollo took over. And so it all starts off with Lydia, the country kind of right next to Greece at the time. It was ruled by King Croesus. I'm probably saying that wrong. And he was just rich as hell. He had so much gold. One day he delivers this huge offering to the Oracle of Delphi. Thousands of pounds of gold and just silver, and it's just crazy. Like it's a fortune. And basically they make this donation to the temple so they can, just to ask the one question, should Croesus attack the Persians? He has a little funny bit about how the Oracle of Delphi was really just ingesting herbs, burning bay leaves, and it looks like she's kind of whacked out on them. And so she would just spout crazy stuff because she was high, basically. So now he gives us the story behind all of this. So Lydia is here in Asia Minor. Greece is just right around the way. A neighboring country, Medes, was already taken over by the Persians. Now, he felt like, man, I gotta attack these Persians. These guys they took over our neighbors. But he didn't really want to. He was kind of on the fence. That's why he's asked the Oracle of Delphi for an answer. So, of course, like as usual, the Oracle of Delphi gives a very nebulous answer. I kind of like that panel. He draws her very interestingly. It's very different than the rest of the, goofier art in these comics. So he decides, fuck it, I'm going to attack the Persians. Now, the Persians are another group that are like the Indo-European, the Aryans, the from the Russian steppes. Just another group who, with their use of horses, They conquered a lot. It really was a revolutionary thing at that time. We've seen it in the past 3 issues. All these groups coming out of that area and just kicking ass wherever they went. So Persia wins the battle. In fact, they take over Croesus's capital city, and they put him on a pyre with 14 Lydian princes, and they're going to burn him. But then they declare that we're going to let you live, Croesus, and we're going to spare your city of Sardis, your capital city. So Persia, even though they were this huge empire conquering all these countries, they kind of had showed mercy to their countries. They were basically like, you guys can do whatever you want. We've conquered you. We're not going to fuck with you. Just pay your taxes, and you can worship your own religion. You can do whatever you want. So they were kind of a kinder, gentler empire. Next, the Persians attack Babylon. This is a story from the Bible where the prophet Daniel, his story involves this war. So the Persians take Babylon pretty easy. And once again, they just say, you guys can do whatever you want. Some of you people who were brought there against your will to Babylon, you can go home. So now we see the Persian Empire, and it's getting bigger and bigger. Now we kind of flash back, and we learn a little something about the Persians and their culture. Their one god was Ahura Mazda. They basically saw the world in a binary way, good and evil. That was the extent of their religion. And Ahura Mazda was the god of goodness, and light. They didn't bury or cremate their dead. They just exposed them to the elements. Their ministers of faith were called the Magi, or Magi, I guess it's pronounced. That's where we get the word magic, of course. So they were different than the people around them. So the guy who basically started the Persian Empire was Cyrus the Great. So now this is why we flash back. We see them conquering the Medes, who we saw 10 pages ago. And then we see him conquering Lydia. After he died, his son took over Egypt. Then there were some various power struggles until Darius becomes king of Persia. Under Darius, the empire would consolidate. Darius was kind of a bean counter when it comes to running an empire. He wasn't a great conqueror, he wasn't a great military tactician, but he was a great administrator. So he consolidated the empire, basically had it running like a Swiss watch, Everything was divided up into satrapies, 20 provinces, each ruled by a Persian lord called the satrap. And once again, they didn't try to impose their beliefs or will on any of the conquered lands. And as long as they paid their taxes, they let them do whatever the hell they wanted. So look how big this empire is. It goes all the way down to India. Not all of India, but a chunk of it. All the way up here, like to the Russian steppes. All the way over here to right next to Greece and Egypt. It was at the time the biggest empire the world had ever seen. So now, if you remember last issue, the Greeks had set up these colonies in all over the Mediterranean. And one of them was Ionia. And that was in Asia Minor, which is now under the Persian Empire. So a Greek, the governor, one of the governors in Ionia, he basically went to Athens and said, these Persians are, they're going against us. And, we're Greeks, so side with us. So the Athenians send 1,000 hoplites, the, armored foot soldiers. And supposedly, this sounds like something Herodotus made up. Darius had basically a servant who every meal he ate, he would say, "Sire, remember the Athenians." Because Darius couldn't get around to the Athenians just then. He was running a huge empire. But basically he was like, oh, I'm going to get these guys one day. So now we find out about early Athens. Last issue we saw how there was like a dark age in Greece after the Trojan War. A lot of Greeks migrated or were just killing each other. Athens was never conquered. They were the one city that just held firm. Life was pretty unchanging in Athens. Pretty peaceful. And we just basically see different rulers of Athens. Now, eventually out of this discontent with these rulers, Athens slowly developed democracy. They had basically town meetings and they had some sway. But of course there was just the tyrant leader, as they called him, the tyrant. But some of them were pretty nice tyrants. Back then, tyrant just meant the ruler. And so here's this guy was one of the early tyrants of Athens, Pisistratos. And he was kind of a good tyrant. He did a lot of good things that the Greeks liked a lot. So after he died, of course, there's different power struggles. Who's going to run Athens? And here's where things get even more democratic. Because basically, the aristocrats were, of course, saying we should rule. And most of the people, though, were like, no, we don't want to go back to that shit. And they declared a democracy. So it turned into a civil war. They call it the Athenian Revolution. And the democracy was established. And for the next few centuries, Athens would be democracy. So now the Athenians are all fired up. And they just start attacking all their neighboring Greek city-states. They're just very war happy. Even the Spartans were getting scared because the Spartans were already well established as the power of Greece. And it was right around this time now where that governor from Ionia, of the Ionians, came to ask for help of the Athenians. And they're like, sure, because they're full of success. So now it's 490 BC. Darius's navy had crushed the Ionian revolt. But Darius still just said, you guys can be a democracy if you want. Just pay your taxes. You can rule yourselves any way you want. It seems like one of the better empires we've had in our history. So now the whole imperial navy set sail for Athens. They're finally, Darius is going to get revenge against these pesky Athenians. Almost their whole fleet was dashed against the rocks. I guess the Aegean has very tricky winds. So finally, Darius landed 30,000 men on a plain called Marathon, which is right near Athens. So Athens had made enemies of all its neighbors. So all these other Greek city-states were like, yeah, you made your bed, now lie in it. But still, the Athenians tried to reach out. They sent a runner, like a courier, to Sparta. And this is where the term marathon comes from. He has a kind of dated joke about how jogging. He's like, I see thousands of people jogging with special running shoes. It's pretty dopey. So the Spartans actually said, yeah, we'll be glad to help. Just not right away. We're in the middle of a festival, a religious festival. So the Athenians armored up and faced the Persians on their own. And the Athenians actually kicked the shit out of the Persians. They're like completely outnumbered. At the end of the day, 6,400 Persians were dead. Only 192 Athenians lost their lives. A few days later, the Spartans finally show up. And they're like, thanks for nothing, guys. So, of course, Darius hears the news of this, and he hits the roof. He spends the next 3 years drafting soldiers from all parts of his empire, building up supply depots, training troops. And then in 486, Darius dies, leaving the throne to his son Xerxes. Now, if you've ever read Frank Miller's 300, this is that time, you know. Xerxes is the new king of Persia. He had his own shit to deal with in the empire, so he didn't get to get revenge on Greece just yet. So one of the new Greek rulers is Themistocles. And right around that time, the Athenians struck pay dirt with their silver mines. They just had all this money. Most people just wanted to distribute it to the citizens, like a dividend. But Themistocles said, we got to build warships. And he turned the Athenian navy into the best navy in the world. Which is very wise of him, because Xerxes is not going to forget about this affront to the Persian Empire. So finally the giant invasion begins. The Persians are preparing their navy, trying to make this bridge using all these boats over a strait. It keeps like failing. The winds keep knocking it out. But eventually he has the biggest army the world's ever seen, and they're heading towards Greece. He's the Delphic Oracle again. I love the way he draws her, like she's completely on meth or something. So now the Greeks are pretty much united. Well, mainly Sparta and Athens. They're the ones that matter. They're the two powerhouses. And they've got a plan. The Athenian navy is going to, attack their navy at a certain point. And the Spartans are going to make a stand here, right at Thermopylae, which, of course, that's what 300 is all about. And so we see the Battle of Thermopylae, where there was like just a handful of Spartans compared to the Persian army. But because of the Thermopylae Pass, it was this mountain area, the Persians just couldn't attack them. They kept getting thrown back. Thousands of Persians were killed, and basically it was like 300 Spartans just holding this ground for days and weeks. Eventually they fell before the might of the Persian Empire. That same day, the navies were fighting. The Greeks had to retreat, their navy had to retreat. So now there was nothing standing in between Xerxes and Athens. They had a vote in Athens. A lot of people evacuated. But when they reach Athens, they easily storm the Acropolis, kill the remaining Athenians who didn't leave, and torched all the temples. So mission accomplished. And so the coalition's breaking up. Themistocles has to convince the Spartans to stay and keep fighting. A lot of the other Greek city-states were like, why should we defend Athens? There is no Athens. It's already been burned. And then he tricks Xerxes, plays this little trick. And the Greek navy decimates the Persian navy. In like one day, the Imperial Navy is pretty much, the Persian Navy is pretty much decimated. And Xerxes is just like, shit, better start packing. I gotta get out of here. So they basically all retreated back to the Persian Empire. So now Themistocles went around Greece demanding gold for the war. So there's Athenian refugees everywhere. They're at Salamis. They're all over Greece. And they can't go home because they did leave a large Persian army that still occupied the area around Athens. So it was basically an occupied city. The Persian general occupying Athens, Mardonius, he sent a messenger to the Greeks saying we should have an alliance between Athens and Persia. That didn't go over well. The next spring, Mardonius and his army were slaughtered. So Greece was saved. Xerxes returned to Persia. And the Athenians got back their city. So I gotta say, this issue, yeah, it was interesting. I love history. But man, I really miss just like, showing us all these different countries and, many centuries of history. This is pretty much just like one war with a little background, I didn't find this nearly as fascinating as the first 5 issues, but I liked it. And I just like Larry Gonick's stuff. He always makes it entertaining, and almost every panel has a joke in it, even though they're not the best all the time. But they're clever. It's fun. So I don't know. I hope next issue looks like they're just going to look at Greece again. And I don't think it's going to be that wide-reaching. Once again, we have the reading list, and this time is a much shorter one, because like he said, almost all of the material from this is from Herodotus. But he looked at a few other things to get background color and stuff. And then we have the coming attraction page. So this is just going to be more about Athens in their golden age. And this is, when we think about Greece, this is the era, you know, the cradle of civilization, all that stuff. So there you go, guys. Cartoon History of the Universe, Volume 6 by Larry Gonick. Hope you guys enjoyed looking at this with me, and I hope to see you here next time at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.